If you can hear me... Come here a minute. Look behind that camera, it looks like there's a figure there.
I've been given the privilege of being left alone down here in the basement.
Can you please join us? Can you come down the stairs, please?
Okay, I can hear movement on the stairs.
We did speak to her. She doesn't want to go on camera.
Could you shout? Oh, there's footsteps then.
I just heard someone speaking.
Someone's... I've just caught someone popping out of there.
Yes, sir. Yes, Living poison. Manufactured record. Yes, sir. Go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here we go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here we go. It's like a light is in my face, but I can't fall for you. I close my eyes and drift away. I've overdosed on you. Cause then you wake up dead one day.
Jack the Ripper Museum, Whitechapel. 1888, Whitechapel, London. For the masses of urban poor that live there, survival was a daily battle. It was overcrowded, overpopulated, with unemployment, prostitution, disease, alcoholism and poverty, a dirty and violent area. But ordinary people were unprepared for the horrors to come. The everyday violence of street brawls would be completely overshadowed by the torment of a madman. It would be known as the Autumn of Terror. A serial killer was on the loose. Jack the Ripper. On the 31st of August 1888, a prostitute, Polly Nichols, was walking the streets trying to make enough money to pay her rent. Her body was found at 3:40 in the early hours in Bucks Row, her throat and abdomen slashed wide open. On the 8th of September, Just 8 days after the murder of Polly Nichols, a 47-year-old prostitute, Annie Chapman, met her own violent end. She was found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street at 6 a.m. Her womb had been removed. The 30th of September, 2 more street prostitutes were murdered. Elizabeth Stride's body was found with her throat cut at 1 a.m. in Dupfields near Burner Street. That same night, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square at 1:45. Her face was slashed several times. Her uterus was missing, and so was her left kidney. November the 9th, the killer struck again, this time with grotesque violence. Prostitute Mary Kelly's mutilated body was discovered in her rented room in Miller's Court, Dorset Street at 10:45 a.m. Her body was so badly mutilated it was barely identifiable. She was virtually skinned to the bone. Although there were many suspects on who Jack the Ripper actually was, the case still remains unsolved. The Jack the Ripper Museum is a museum and tourist attraction that opened in August 2015 in Cable Street, London. It recreates the East End of London setting in which the unsolved Jack the Ripper murders took place in 1888 and exhibits some of the original artifacts from the period as well as waxworks recreations of crime scenes and sets. The project's planning application describes it as a museum of women's history. Its change of focus to Jack the Ripper was only revealed when the facade of the building became visible a year later, leading to numerous protests. The house, now a museum, dates back to the 1750s, and many families once lived there. Joseph Soule was a wardrobe dealer and had his shop here in 1921. The basement, back in Victorian times, was used to store the bodies of loved ones awaiting for the funeral director to collect them for burial. In 1665, the bubonic plague, known as the Black Death, hit London. Whole communities were wiped out and corpses littered the streets as there was no one left to bury them. When the plague appeared in a household, the house was sealed, thus condemning the whole family to death. These houses were distinguished by a red cross painted on the front door with the words, "Lord, have mercy on us." Over 15% of London's population was wiped out between 1665 and 1666, a total of around 100,000 people in a space of 2 years. Hundreds of plague pits are scattered across the city and surrounding countryside. Near to the museum, there are 3 plague pits. Since the opening of the museum, staff and visitors have left the building due to the paranormal activity. A shadow figure has been seen in the basement. Voices are heard. Dark shadows have been seen moving from room to room. A feeling of being watched. and noises and footsteps are also heard throughout the property. Several weeks before the investigation, I arranged to go to the museum to take our intro shots. I took hundreds of pictures, and whilst on the top floor, I captured a shadow figure in one of the photos standing in a doorway. We have our static cams in place. Static cam 1 is on the 4th floor. Static cam 2 is on the 3rd floor staircase. Static cam 3 is in the lounge area. Static cam 4 is in the crime room. And static cam 5 is in the mortuary.
So here we are at the Jack the Ripper Museum. We've set up our static cams covering the floors and most of the rooms. We have got someone that's keeping an eye on the place for us down in the reception area. We did speak to her. She doesn't want to go on camera. What was that banging?
There was a loud bang from behind me,
I heard that myself.
but it was not immediately behind me. It was, I don't know where it was.
We did speak to her. She doesn't want to go on camera. What was that banging?
There was a loud bang from behind me,
I heard that myself.
but it was not immediately behind me. It was, I don't know where it was.
Okay, so some sort of movement or banging from outside there. As I was saying, I was speaking to the lady that's looking after us this evening. She doesn't want to go on camera, but she says that none of the other staff want to work here in the evening. She does, and she doesn't really come out of that area, but she has heard all the banging and movement coming from within this building. So I think the first place we're going to start off from will be on the top floor. This top floor was added at a later date at some point, but they say that this is the most haunted part of the building. So we're going to make our way up there now and see if we can capture any EVPs. And also it was where I caught the picture of the shadow figure, sort of half standing in the doorway. So let's see if we can make contact with that spirit. So this is the top floor, and this is a room, a mock-up of what it would have looked like and been like to be a woman on your own, being a prostitute, making money, and just to try and pay your rent. So this is the sort of thing that would have been inside that room. This is also where I caught the picture of the shadow figure, which was taken from there, looking over to the doorway where Mark's standing, so it was like a figure half standing in and out the door when there was no one here whatsoever. Can I ask who it is that wanders on this floor? I've seen you in one of my photographs standing in the door as a shadow figure. Can you tell me your name, please? Okay, I just turned on the sensitive digital recorder. You see this device I'm holding in my hand? I'm going to place it here on the fireplace. And see that red light? Could you talk into the red light, please, and tell us who you are? If you can hear my voice, could you move something inside this room?
If you can hear my voice, could you move something inside this room?
Her voice is captured on the sensitive digital recorder, but we cannot decipher what the voice is saying. Here is the audio.
If you can hear my voice, could you move something inside this room? If you can hear my voice, could you move something inside this room?
We now make our way down to the lounge area where Mark will start the next session.
Well, I'd like to start off with introducing myself. My name's Mark. I have a friend to the right of me, his name's Jeff, and to the left of me, my friend Phil. We're now in what is mocked up to be like a parlour or sitting room from the days of what it would have looked like in the late 1800s, around the time Jack the Ripper was causing terror around Whitechapel. But of course, this house would have looked completely and utterly different back then. And I would have thought it was a multi-occupancy residence. The person I'd like to ask, if they're here, is Joseph Soul. He used to run a shop from downstairs. It was a wardrobe shop. And he was here in around 1921. Not sure how long he stayed here for, but I'd like to ask out. Joseph, do you or your family still come back to visit here, or are you still here? What was this room like back in the days when you occupied this house? Was this used as your complete living space where you slept, ate, washed, and all the other things you do in daily living?
Mark receives an EVP, a voice saying that it was a dining room. Here is the audio taken from Mark's digital recorder, enhanced.
What was this room like back in the days when you occupied this house? Was this used as your complete living space where you slept, ate, washed? What was this room like back in the days when you occupied this house? Was this used as your complete living space where you slept, ate, washed? I'm going to ask this question to Joseph. When you lived here, London would have looked very, very different to what it is today. Was it a hard living you had? Or because you had your own shop and your own business, did you have enough?
Joseph's soul responds to Mark, telling him that times were hard when he lived here back in 1921. Here is the enhanced audio.
Was it a hard living you had? Or because you had your own shop and your own business, did you have enough? Was it a hard living you had? Or because you had your own shop and your own business, did you have enough? If you can hear me... Come here a minute. Look behind that camera, it looks like there's a figure there. Can you see what I'm looking at?
Not through the camera, no.
Come here, Jeff. It looks like there's a huge black figure. What's behind the camera?
Right, so that, as you can see, there's nothing there, yeah?
Fine.
What's that?
I take some photos of what we are seeing, which is standing behind our static cam. The figure is not visible on our cameras and we can only see it with our own eyes. But on the pictures with the flash turned off, I managed to capture the figure. Not long afterwards, the figure disappears.
For some reason, it's not being picked up on our infrared cams, our full spectrum cams, but we can actually see it with our own eyes. And we can't work out how or what this shadow is that's actually standing there. It looks like part of a figure.
With a bowler hat on. Very odd.
What was that?
It was a voice. It sounded, I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a voice and it sounded like it was in here.
We all hear a disembodied voice, a woman's voice saying, "I saw you here." Here is the audio enhanced taken from Phil's handheld cam.
And we can't work out how or what this shadow is that's actually standing there. It looks like part of a figure.
With a bowler hat on. Very odd.
What was that?
It was a voice. It sounded, I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a voice and it sounded like it was in here.
And we can't work out how or what this shadow is that's actually standing there. It looks like part of a figure.
With a bowler hat on. Very odd.
What was that?
It was a voice. It sounded, I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a voice and it sounded like it was in here.
Phil and I set up a laser grid on the 3rd floor staircase, pointing up towards the 4th floor doorway. Movement is detected as something moves from left to right, breaking the beams. It was time for Phil to do a solo session, and we go down to the basement where the mortuary is located.
I've been given the privilege of being left alone down here in the basement under the house. They've shut the door on me. Now, from what I've been told, this particular room was often used in these type of houses for the storage of bodies. When somebody in the house died, the logical place to put them would be down in the cellar where it was cold until the undertaker came and obviously took them away. And now this has been kitted out as a mortuary, fittingly, with the drawers behind me. In addition to bodies which would have been stored down here, very, very close, there are 3 plague pits. Obviously, this part of London, East London, would have suffered very badly because the conditions were so poor that the plague would have spread very, very quickly, and literally thousands of people died. Hence why there would have been 3 pits close by. What I'd like to do is ask if there are any spirits down here. If you could communicate with me. Now, my name is Phil. For two reasons. Firstly, to find out about the history of this place. Obviously now it's a museum. Bit of a grisly museum, being based around Jack the Ripper. But secondly, I also would like to talk to you personally, to find out your story about why you were here. So I've introduced myself. Tell me your name. Okay, I can hear movement on the stairs outside. Okay, I can hear movement on the stairs outside. Sorry, I'm just listening because the noises are becoming more frequent. Almost sounds like a voice. Could you shout? I heard his footsteps then. Could you shout? I heard his footsteps then.
Phil completes his session in the mortuary, and Mark and I go up to the staircase where earlier we captured movement within our laser grid. Can you please join us? Can you come down the stairs, please? Can you shout out so we can hear you? As they've changed this into the Jack the Ripper Museum, have you been brought through because of the negativity? Who are you? Why are you here? Can you move something up on the top floor? Knock something over so we can hear you? The fuck? I just heard someone speaking.
Someone's I've just caught someone popping out of there. I know I have. Oh, fucking, I've just caught someone looking out of that doorway momentarily.
Mark captures movement within the doorway at the top of the stairs, which looks like a figure peeping out at us. Here is the footage again, followed by the footage enhanced and in slow motion. Our investigation was nearly coming to an end, so we all make our way back down to the mortuary in the basement.
So down here, in what is called the mortuary, originally I guess this is where they stored the bodies back in Victorian times. With your children dying from disease, they'd be all stored here for the funeral director to come and collect them. But what they've done in here, they've done like a memorial to the victims of Jack the Ripper. So I'm just going to go around and read some of them out, and I've got the sensitive digital recorder going, so maybe we'll get a response when I start reading all these out. I think probably this is the worst one of Jack the Ripper, because the picture of the woman that he murdered, there's none of her left. She's been skinned near enough down to the bone. They said that you couldn't even really recognise her. So her name was Mary Jane Kelly. She was only 25, the youngest of the victims. Cause of death, throat cut, body severely mutilated, right arm severed, heart removed from the chest cavity. Then over here we have Catherine Eddowes, 46, she had 3 children, buried in an unmarked grave. Cause of death, throat cut, face and abdomen mutilated after death, internal organs removed, 1 kidney missing. Elizabeth Stride, 45, buried in a pauper's grave. Cause of death, 6-inch cut to the throat. No other external injuries. Mud on left side of face. Annie Chapman, 47. She's buried in Manor Park Cemetery. Cause of death, throat cut, body severely mutilated, internal organs removed from abdomen cavity. There's one last one over here. Mary Ann Nichols, also known as Polly to her family. She's buried in Ilford Cemetery. Cause of death, throat cut, incisions to the lower abdomen, bruising on face, 5 teeth missing. Did someone just knock then? There was a bang.
No. I was like walking at the moment.
Those names that I read out are the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper. There are others here that they believe Jack the Ripper murdered, but I haven't read those names out because we don't know if that's the truth or not. But any of those names that I did read out there, if any of you are here, can you please come and tell us your name? Is there anything that you can tell us about how you died? Did you know the person that murdered you?
We receive a response on the sensitive digital recorder, a woman saying, "Yes, I did," to my question, "Did you know the person who murdered you?" Here is the audio taken from the recorder. Did you know the person that murdered you? We wrap up our investigation at the Jack the Ripper Museum. There are many spirits that reside there, some from back in the Victorian times, such as Joseph's soul, who lived here in 1921. The sounds of the footsteps and loud noises that are heard are maybe residual. But what of the victims of Jack the Ripper? It seems that one of the murdered women came through as she responded to our question. She knew her killer.